So Adam Booth said something very interesting on Sam and Jordan's podcast. They were discussing PEDs in boxing, and Adam Booth is of the opinion that somewhere in the region of 50% or more of the top fighters are doping. And he said that one of the ways in which they'll get away with taking PEDs is they will delay signing the contract for the fight for as long as possible. So they'll keep guaranteeing the promoter and everybody else involved that they're definitely going to show up on the night, but they won't actually put pen to paper until 4 or 5 weeks before the fight because they're cycling off. Now, there are many reasons why fighters might not sign up until the last minute. They aren't necessarily all going to be on PEDs, but it definitely makes you think of instances in the past where fighters have consistently delayed signing contracts and left it up until a few weeks before the fight. One fighter who used to do this regularly was Floyd Mayweather. You guys remember that? He would very often delay signing for a fight right up until, again, a month or so beforehand. Now, one of the possibilities that I entertained for why he might be doing that is because he wanted to get an advantage over the opponent. Because let's say he had 5 potential opponents lined up and the names have all been floated out to the press, and all 5 fighters have been contacted. Maybe he knows 2 months out, 3 months out, exactly who he's picked, exactly who he's going to fight, because he knows they're not going to turn him down. Nobody can turn down that kind of opportunity and that kind of money. So let's say he knows exactly who it's going to be 3 months out and he starts training for their specific style, but he doesn't let the fighter know that it's definitely going to be them until, let's say, 4 or 5 weeks before the fight, at a point where they might be thinking that he's chosen somebody else and maybe they're not fully locked in. Maybe they don't have a training camp in full swing, etc., etc. And maybe that is why Mayweather used to do it. But again, you start to think that there's another possibility there. And a more recent example, I'm not sure if he's done this many times in the past, but it certainly happened this year. And that was with Dillian Whyte with the Anthony Joshua fight. And I bring up Dillian Whyte because he did test positive for something, right? And the signing of that fight was delayed up until 3 or 4 weeks before the fight date. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that Dillian Whyte was doing it deliberately to cycle off something, but it's a possibility. At the end of the day, as I say, he did test positive for something, and we still haven't got details of what he tested positive for. The problem is, as I understand it, Dillian Whyte fights under a foreign license. I think it's a Portuguese license. I'm not sure if it's an American one, either or. And the positive test was with VADA. VADA is just a testing agency. They don't sanction anybody. They just test and issue results, confidential results, to the fighter, the promoter, etc. It's not like when you fail a UCAD test, because then the British Boxing Board of Control know about it. They start a process of investigation, and eventually it all comes out in the wash, through a UCAD ruling. But with VADA, it may never come out, because if Dillian Whyte's not a British Boxing Board of Control license holder, again, similar to the Conor Benn situation, how are they going to investigate him? And with Conor Benn, of course, he was a British Boxing Board of Control license holder when he failed the test, whereas Dillian Whyte, to my knowledge, wasn't. So it might be even more difficult trying to sort out that situation than it was with Conor Benn. Anyway, Adam Booth talks about many things in the podcast of Sam and Jordan. Very interesting. He talks about his time with David Haye, his relationship with David Haye. He talks about his relationship with Eubank Jr., because they were together for a couple of fights. Very, very interesting watch. Adam Booth is an interesting character in general. I've always found him very interesting. I hope that one day, and he did do a podcast with Tris Dixon a couple years back, where he started revealing certain things about his time with Haye and so on and so forth. But the situation with George Groves is still shrouded in a little bit of mystery. Groves has spoken on it to some extent, but we haven't really heard Adam Booth's side of the story with regards to George Groves. So make sure you guys check out the podcast he did with Sam and Jordan, and let me know what you think.